Welcome to Solo Joe number 3, the monthly podcast that happens every, quarter or so. This is Crazy Joe Ryder, and I'm pleased as punch to talk to my best bud, my
lifelong friend,
my ex-partner.
And we're not gay.
No, we're not. Not that that's wrong with that.
Wrong with that.
We've been accused, and anyways. My old partner. We've talked about him lots. We founded we bought Hot Comics. That's what we'll talk about. This is my buddy Pat Gruber. Say hi, Pat.
Hello. How's it going?
We're in his living room talking. We just finished watching the Vikings lose.
Lose their first game. Boo.
Skull, boo.
They suck now.
But onto cheerier things.
Yes.
Now, we're not going to do the math, but we've been collecting comics a long time. My first comic that got me from comic reading to actually collecting was Amazing Spider-Man 178, which I still have. I actually slabbed it. What was your secret comic book origin? What were the first comics that got you either reading or collecting?
The first two comics I ever purchased, well, my mom purchased them for me. We were going on a long bus ride down to Brownsville, Texas, which is on the bottom of Texas. I'm a little kid on the Greyhound bus. I was pretty good through all the states until we got to Texas. I discovered Texas was almost as long as the rest of the states we went through. So I started acting up on day 2. My mom, at one of the bus stops, I was looking at the comic book rack, and she agreed to buy me 2 comics to shut me up. One was a Superman, which Superman versus a giant purple evil eye. I think it was like 272 or 273, which I rebought since then because my original copy was destroyed. And the other one was The World's Finest, featuring Superman and Batman, and they had their super sons. And also I think it was like 222 or 223, and that was awesome. That got me hooked. I read them, loved them. Bought a bunch of more at different bus stops throughout the state of Texas just to keep me quiet.
What year was this about?
1972.
Okay.
December 1972. One of the other ones, it was not the first comic, but it was one of the early comics. It was a Batman drawn by Neil Adams, who I didn't know what the artist was at the time. Batman is fighting a werewolf. Years ago, I actually had Neil Adams do me a commission on one of the scenes where Batman's fighting a werewolf, which Joe just seen this hanging framed in my room, because that just had so much to me. I've been thinking, and it was also a giant size, so there was a lot of reprints. And again, the reprints, you had some good artists, some not good artists. I'm a 9-year-old kid trying to figure this out, thinking, why is this story so much better looking than our story? But they all were fun, so that was one of the earlier ones. It was a giant size Batman, I believe it was 255. And like I said, the main news story was drawn by Neil Adams, who years later I knew what he meant, and I worshiped him ever since.
Were you a collector right away? I mean, did you just buy to buy?
Just a reader, just a kid. I was a kid just reading comics, discovering them for the first time. Obviously, when I got back home, you got them at your local drugstore if you were lucky. So there was times like you would get Avengers 161, and then the next one was 163. Well, 161 was part 1 of a 2-part story. So years later, I kind of have to buy 162 to figure out what happened, because this is long before trade paperbacks. So again, there was no consistency. There was not such things as especially comic book shops, or at least not many when I was a kid. They didn't start popping up until the late 70s, if I remember correctly.
Now, what was the first direct comic store you ever?
It was Comic Warrior, back when he was on Rice Street next to the porno shop.
Aha.
Yes. And actually, one time we were leaving Cathedral Church on Sunday, and I shouted to my Mom, there's a comic book shop, stop there. And she seen the adult bookstore that was next door, and she goes, no. And I go, no, comic book shop. Unfortunately, it was not open on Sunday, so next time we actually took a special trip on Saturday, went there. She gave me a couple bucks. At the time, the brand new comics were 30 and 35 cents. Mm-hmm. So I got to buy a few, got to walk in there, explore a little bit. It was a smaller shop. A few years later, you moved downtown St. Paul, where you stayed for decades, and had a bigger shop. But that was like the first, especially comic book shop in the Twin Cities that I was aware of. And a few other ones sprung up over the years. But that was the first one. Like I said, the main thing was my mom thought was a adult bookstore at first. So, no, there's a comic book shop, and it was the Comic Warrior. So
see, my first one was Twin City Comics at Dale Front and Como, Greg Ketter's first shop. Because it was between me and my cousin.
Gotcha.
So when I went to visit him, I'd always stop there if he was open. And like I said, I got that first Spider-Man comic as a Christmas gift.
Oh, nice.
And after that, they were like, well, where do you go? Well, you can go to Twin City Comics, which is real close, or you can go to this St. Paul comic. He charges a whole quarter for back issues, which was ungodly,
Yeah.
And I asked John about it years later. He's like, well, I have to bag, board, and store them. Mm-hmm. It's worth a quarter. And I don't think I started going to John regularly until Greg's shop, where he moved it to downtown Minneapolis the whole block got bought out by the Jesuits and he got booted out. And that's when I started going to St. Paul Comic. But before that, you and I met. We went to the same high school, St. Bernard's, which is now closed up in Ray Street. But you remember how we met?
I think we were in a cafeteria and you were brave enough to pull out a comic book and take some crap from other people around you.
And I didn't give a damn.
And I think after I walked up to you, not knowing you, said, "Oh, you like comics too?" Obviously, a stupid question, but again, I knew no one at that high school except my cousin who was in a grade older than me. So I literally knew no one. I was forced to go to a Catholic high school as I went to a public grade school and junior high school. My mom wanted to make sure I had a good education and a safer education. And again, I know no one else. I see this bozo pull out a comic book and think, oh, it can't be all bad. So we start chit chat. I don't remember our first conversation was like this stuff where you probably said, "Yeah, I like comics. That's why I got one open."
Yeah. Well, that was the thing. I came into St. Bernard's. I knew people because I went to Boy Scouts there, and I was kind of the picked on guy at my grade school. Well, all those people went to St. Agnes or Cretin, and I said, "Screw it, I'm going to St. Bernard's. I know people. I can be my own guy." And it worked out pretty good. Like you said, I took out comics. I brought, "You read comic books?" Yeah. So I'm not going back down. I like them.
Yeah.
And I think somebody said, like, "Well, this guy reads them too." Like they're picking on you. And you were like, I go, "You read comics?" And you went, yeah. And, so that's how we started up. And because I know we used to meet, and again, we're missing a lot because it's a long time ago.
Many years ago.
But we would meet on, was it Fridays down at John's shop?
I think so, yeah.
Because you would come from work. This after high school.
After high school, yes.
And, I'd be in my whatever. Pat would be in his business suit. We'd meet up. And Butch always tells the story because he would hang around there too. And I remember Butch vaguely because there's this long haired guy around me going, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And he'd show me stuff in the comic and I'd be like, I don't want to talk to you. No, don't. Nice. But he remembers you because you came down in your business suit. Now, back in high school, we got this crazy idea of investing in comics. And it was you, me, and a gentleman, Pat Germer. And Pat was the same way. I mean, he was just a guy who kind of out on the fringe, and we all were connected because we read comics. And we got together. What do you remember about us talking about that? Anything? Nothing?
Just that we decided we wanted to try and buy some comics for investments because we thought every new #1 would be a hot issue that could literally be worth a lot more. And I remember when the first one we bought, and we didn't buy many because obviously people stopped.
10, if I remember.
Yeah, people stopped, providing money. It's like, well, but I think we bought, I believe it was Saga of the Swamp Thing #1.
Yep.
Which obviously bombed.
Yeah,
it was 2 years before Alan Moore took over. You can still get them in 50-cent boxes nowadays. I mean, it was because again, our thought process, the original Swamp Thing #1 at that point was probably worth $30. Bernie Wrightson, that one. At the time, now that book is worth probably $500 in Nearman shape if you have it slab. But I mean, it was just like, hey, this is going to be a hot book. Swamp Thing's coming back. They were supposed to be working on a movie, which they did, which was an awful movie. In fact, I think, did it have, #2 I think had a photo cover, which we didn't buy #2. But
you're right. It did have a photo cover.
#2 had a photo cover from the movie, which obviously, if anybody's ever seen the Swamp Thing movie, it was not
And of course, the annual had the painted poster of Adria Balbo in her
nightgown,
bodacious tatas being held by the Swamp Thing.
Yes, and it was her nightgown, which
adaptation,
was good.
Which wasn't any good. Yeah, obviously we weren't the best at that, but I do know the other Pat dropped out.
Yes,
because he dropped out of high school, and we kind of stuck with it. The first con we did was that 84 or
83, I believe.
83, and that was done downtown.
We were done with high school. But that was our first con. I believe it was 83. I think it was 83
because it would have been that.
No, wait, it was 84. I apologize because I think I was working at the bank. I started working at the bank in 84.
And I'd have to look. I know it was
I came home after the bar, and you were in the basement with my mom, my dad, and my 2 brothers, and everybody was helping out. Some people were making cardboard signs that would, my brother was writing action, because again, we had different titles, Action Comics, Superman Comics, etc. And so my whole family was in the basement pitch hitting. After work, I went to the bar for a cocktail or two, and then I got home afterwards, and so I get home like 9:30, and my whole family and Joe was down there working on stuff, getting ready for our first show, which was in St. Paul at the, I don't remember what the hotel was called then. It was at that,
it's on 7 corners.
It was a Days Inn, I think, at the time.
There's a hotel there, and then they had like a room in back. John's shop was like directly across the street from the hotel. And I think it was the first one, was that the one Don Simpson was at?
Don Simpson, I think also Ernie Chan.
Yeah,
no,
Sergio might have been there.
Sergio. I can never pronounce his last name.
I
Help me
know,
with that. Sergio was there. The guy that created Gru. He was also artist for Mad Comics many years.
I do remember, yeah, we stayed up till what, like 4 a.m.
Getting our stuff ready, because basically we had some stuff we purchased together, but not much. And then Joe had stuff, Pat, me had stuff. So we put our labels. It was mine. We put a P. Obviously, if it was Joe would put a J. Thus, we formed P&J Comics because, unfortunately, or fortunately, depends on how you look at it, I had more stuff. So my initial went first. And then there was some stuff we bought together, like the Great Saga Swamp Thing number 1. And over the time from high school to then, we bought some minor stuff together, but nothing major.
We'd kind of look in previews and kind of
nothing major. So we had P&J stock, which was the smallest, Joe's, and then Pat's. And
had we bought our famous X collection?
No, that came a few years later.
Okay. So, do you remember anything? I remember at the first con, like I said, we were up till 4 a.m., fell asleep, woke up at 7,
drove down there,
and then got our stuff down there.
Got our stuff, the boxes down there, got set up. We actually, I think we have put little things on our front saying, 20% off mark price or something along those lines, and a few of the older deals at the time walked by was giving us a hard time. Well, you can't discount your comics, and again, for us, we're doing a show. I can't remember how much tables cost back then, but you gotta realize Joe was working at Sears, not making much. I'm working at First Banks part-time, but also going to school. And I was thrilled because I was making $5.15 an hour because I had a shift differential. Minimum wage at that point was $3.45. So Joe and I, where the table was $30, $40 each, we bought a couple of tables. So I mean, we had money out. Our paychecks don't go far. I mean, we don't have a lot of money to live on, so it doesn't sound like a lot. But back then, it was almost a whole paycheck for us.
I remember too, because one of the first big books I ever bought with my money I got from graduation, I bought a Uncanny X-Men number 1, and I think I paid $150. So I looked at the guide and said $400. So I had it up for $400. And when we first started, some guy comes over, points at it, and goes, "Oh, I'll buy that." And I go, "Holy crap! I just made a sale. Let's go. $400. $400. I thought it said 40." My first asshole.
It was your first
asshole I ever saw. I'm like, what a dick. And I also recall other dealers coming over and looking through our stock. We had a price guide, if not more or less. And you guys know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Asshole number 2, our first con out. I do also recall John talking to him afterwards about the con, and he goes, "Yeah, a lot of these dealers are really pissed about you guys discounting books." I go, "Really?" "Yeah, they came and told me I should stop you." I didn't care. I got your money.
For your tables?
Yeah, what does John care, And he's doing great because you go from the con right across the street to his store. But
right.
How many cons do you remember we did with him?
It wasn't
I want to
that
say
many.
2 or
3 or 4 at the most. It wasn't that many. It was not that many, but it was, again, right by the old Civic Center where now XL is, on the 7 Corners, as it used to be called. And the hotel is still there. Where the separate building was, where the con was, is now a parking ramp, unfortunately. But yeah, because that hotel actually built their own small event center, and that's where we were having it. Again, it wasn't a huge room, but...
And I think if you go into the Eagle Street Grill, which was there, you can go into the room that used to be St. Paul Comic, because they bought it, and it's now, a restaurant.
Oh, okay.
But it's just a beautiful building with old style brickwork and things like that. It's really kind of fun to look at.
Well, I remember, too, at that first convention, and I wish I would have bought more. Schindler's was there, but they didn't have a normal table set. They just had stacks of comics because somehow they discovered in one of their houses stacks of certain comics. So it would be a whole box of comics from the 60s. I remember one of them was Journey in Mystery 126. Actually, that became Thor, the first Thor standalone. And I think they were asking $2 or $3 each. They were 12-cent comics or 15-cent comics, but they just had stacks of each. That's what they were selling. They weren't selling for cover price, but they were, even from back then, they're pretty cheap. $2 or $3 each. I remember buying a couple of like that, Amazing Spider-Man, I think 28 and 35, X-Men 35. They had, I think, a Submariner one, but I don't remember. It was not number 1, but it was one of the early ones. I might have been where he was fighting the Thing. And again, some were in great shape, some were a little bit rough, because again, they could talk about a whole box. I wish we would have bought all of them, to be honest. Because shortly afterwards, a lot of those books way in value. I ended up selling, I think, the Amazing Spider-Man 28 to another collector years later because I cherry picked. I bought 5. 2 for P&J Comics, 2 for me, and then 1 for my own collection. And I cherry picked obviously the best copy for mine since I made the decision to do
Executive
this investment.
decisions.
So when I sold my copy years later, because I used to have a lot of comics which I've sold over the years to pay for different things, I sold my Amazing Spider-Man 28 that was near mint minus. At the time, I probably got $300 for it. I'm thinking, great, I paid like $3 for this from 20 years ago. So there was a few good investments that
Sometimes you
panned
win.
out. You do win once in a while. But I remember, I wish we would have bought more of them, especially the 2 Spider-Man books and the Thor, the first standalone Thor, where he's fighting Hercules on cover, which is, again, he used to be in Journey of Mystery. It was the first standalone Thor. All they did was change the title. The numbering stayed the same. But I remember that about Schindler's. I remember people would say, well, Schindler's doesn't represent comics. All they do is sell porn. I'm thinking, well, they only had like 8 types of comics there, and they sold them out this first day. The second day, I think somebody else started using their table because they didn't send an employee the second day because they sold out their stack of 100 of each and made their little money back. But again, they were there to promote their store too. They had flyers out for all their locations at the time, So yeah, I just remember I wish we would have done more of that, but we made a little bit of money. I think one of our biggest comics he sold was Teen Titans #1 by Marv Wolfman and George Perez.
Yes.
At the time, that was a hot book, and I think it came out like 2 years later, but was under ordered. So I think we put 25 on it, and we tucked 15 or 17 because we had 20% off, and the guy negotiated a bit more. But my dad was standing there. He goes, "You guys just sold comic for $17." Again, my dad grew up, with a father that was an absentee father, so he never had anything. So when he sees his son sell a piece of paper that he thinks is worthless for $17, and again, I'm making $5 an hour. That was pretty impressive to him,
My dad was even, he would tell me stories about, there's guys in the fire department that, spent all their money on comics and ruined their marriage and they lost their house. And I'm like, I didn't see a downside to that really, but
Me neither. But yeah, so that was our first show. Obviously, we did well enough to make some money. One of the things I vaguely remember that we used to try to do back then was put money aside at least to pay for the next table, no matter what it was going to be. Because again, Joe and I did not have a lot of money lying around. It wasn't, not that we're rich now, but if we had come for the emergency $100, we probably could, both of us. Back then it was like, so I was in charge of keeping track of the money because I was a little bit better with that than
you
Joe.
were great with that. You could kind of,
so
at
if
the
we
end
put
of the
$100 inside an envelope, I made sure the next show came, we could have our tables paid for, and that's what we did.
Here's how we would do it. We have a notebook, and
Yes.
as we sold the book, we'd write down, okay, Amazing Spider-Man 23, and you'd put J or P, and then at the end of the con, we'd sit back and I'd kind of watch you in a little amazement as you'd, just flip through everything, and then here's the bottom total.
Yeah. For those that don't know me, my background, I have an accounting degree, and I've worked in the finance industry since 84, 85, and so I'm very good with numbers for the most part. So that was always one of my few strengths I had in school, was good with numbers. So that's why I could went through this stuff, or I was good at keeping books or that type of item.
Now, what other? I know we did other cons.
Greenberg came to town.
Yeah, he had his
The
monthly
MCBA
show.
came to town, and that was 88 or 89 their
Did we
first
do
one.
their first show?
We did do their first show.
Okay, that's good.
It was year 88 or 89 was their first show.
Was that the one
at the
over
Thunderbird?
Was it Thunderbird? I thought they
Thunderbird.
did a show over at the University of Minnesota.
They
what
did do
used to be
that
a Holiday
too,
Inn.
but they did like a small one. But the first
Oh,
big
okay.
one, because they
That's
also
right. They used to do that microcon.
they do the microcon.
Yeah.
That's the name that they stuck with for all these years. We didn't know who the MCBA was at the time. Obviously, we're going to tell more later on that Joe and I became very involved, and we still are to a degree. But the first year we didn't know. Somehow got a flyer because I think they got my name from, I don't know how they got, but we got an offer for mailing. Asked Joe, hey, you want to do this show? It's at the Thunderbird, but the tables to us at the time were pretty pricey. So we had to decide we wanted to do it or not. So we made the commitment. But there's also another show coming to town called Greenberg. And we did that a lot. He did like mostly one day, but he did a couple of 2
monthly
days.
shows across.
Different hotels with,
Yeah.
again, smaller venues, but for some reason he could pack in the people. So we would start doing both these shows. The MCBA obviously had one big show, and then the Microcon show, which that kept switching locations, so that necessarily was not always a good
Remember
draw.
VFW, like I said, the
VFW.
Holiday Inn.
We got involved. What's that thing over in St. Paul? Energy Park.
I wasn't at that one.
Oh, that was
But I
a
do remember
disaster.
that,
I helped
yeah.
try to run that one as well as dealing. That was a disaster. You couldn't charge for the tables because there was a rule that the local place
Yeah.
had or something like that.
Is that the
or you
one-
couldn't charge admission. That's what
Is
it
that
was.
the one where the one lady went in and wrote a bunch of bogus checks?
But I got cash.
You got
Yes,
cash.
I got cash.
I got cash. Yeah.
That's a story for another day. Or now.
Another podcast.
Yes. I got
now,
cash. And
when
she had can I say Hooters? She had big Hooters.
Yeah,
and I got
cash.
and she wore no bra.
Yeah. That sold Amazing Spider-Man 1 for what, $10, but he
Yeah.
got cash.
Yeah, not quite, but
How
that's
the tail goes on. Now, we talked about doing cons, and then when I got married, I bought the Ford Ranger, and I also remember that we paid to upgrade the shocks after a con because
Yes.
boy did that baby ride low.
as we got more and more books, obviously you get more and more boxes, and you don't realize like a little comic book, you times it by another $250 in a long box, they start getting some weight to them.
After that, we branched out. We did Duluth a couple times.
Yes.
We went up to St. Cloud because John up there did a show. Those were good shows. We did the semi-disastrous Wisconsin Dells show. Now, Pat has a story for that one.
Yeah, I thought Joe and his wife, Chris, and I drove together in the truck, which
Yeah.
was not necessarily big for 3 people in the
No,
front.
it wasn't an extended cab. It was just a regular cab.
I know.
With an 8-foot bed. So we loaded it with comics,
But the front.
and the 3 of us were in the front. And
I'm a little bit bigger
It was
guy.
a manual too, so
Yes.
you had the
Oh yeah.
gear shift in the
And
middle.
I'm a little bit bigger guy. I was even bigger back then, so it was really tight spot. So we get there. I think we shared a hotel room. And Joe,
It was an interesting hotel room though because you had a
Yeah.
separate room,
I know.
and then we were in the main room, and of course the bathroom was shared. But
Yeah.
never
And
mind.
then Joe to appease his wife Chris, seeing us something about
Free duck tickets.
free duck tickets. So he had to go listen to some spiel about some timeshares for supposedly a half hour to hour. And there I am on Sunday.
Years before cell phones, I may point out.
We're long years before cell phones. There I am on Sunday. Joe said they're gonna be gone for like an hour and a half. He's gonna go to the free spiel and then do the duck thing. The show's getting ready to close, and I'm there by myself. Luckily, another Joe I didn't know agreed to watch my table a couple times so he could go pee. Because I had to go pee a few times. Finally, Joe and Chris come in, and I'm just livid. I'm pissed to the max. I thought I've been abandoned. We're supposed to be a partnership. I'm doing this myself. Luckily, a few people offered to buy some stuff, so I discounted some stuff heavily. Otherwise, that show was a total disaster financially also.
Yeah.
But I ended up discounting some stuff at the last second to get some money in the door for us so we could pay for our gas back home.
Well, I
for
remember
everything.
too. You were worried, like, what happened if he
Oh, yeah,
crashed?
what-
What if he?
yeah.
What the hell am I gonna do?
I didn't drive back then, plus it was Joe and Chris's vehicle, so I would have been stranded in Wisconsin Dells. And again, long before cell phones, long before what's that? Unibrow or Uber. Long before Uber.
Unibrow.
Yeah. So it was just a disaster. So we never did the Wisconsin Dells con
No.
again, even though we got
I
a
will say,
solicitation for
years
it.
later, the only reason I counted it worked out okay because I bought a ton of toys like the Marvel Super Secret Wars, and they were $5 then, but they ended up. Some of them went for crazy money. Black Venom, the Wolverine. The one book I didn't buy that I thought about. Guy had a Superman #4, wanted $80 for it, and that was a lot of money because I didn't have $80.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, but I didn't. And again, you always regret what you never buy. But we saw the ducks, and we just decided that was not a show we were going to do. The last show we didn't do. I remember we had loaded the truck up, and we were going to try to go to Duluth, but there was a snowstorm going on between us and Duluth, and we thought about it, and we thought, well, if we can punch through the storm, we should be fine. But then I think at 5 a.m. when I started up the car, the water pump gave out. And so I'm sitting at the parking lot watching all this water pour out of my truck. And I think I called you and I said, Pat, I don't think we're going to do this one. And we're like, okay, because we were kind of worried about the snowstorm
Yeah.
anyways.
I vaguely remember that. Yeah, and then
Well,
your
we
truck
did.
died.
There was the time we went to Madison. Remember, we stayed with my aunt and uncle. And that one we went through a snowstorm too. And the truck broke down right outside of Eclair. And we're on the side of the road with ton of comics in the back. And we're like, what the hell are we going to do? And I think I figured it out. It was the air filter was iced because it was so wet and soggy. So we took it out. We found a Kmart that was open. And thank God they had an air filter. But we ended up like an hour, 2 hours late to my aunt's and my mom, and they were freaking. Because like, oh my God, they went through a snowstorm. And
They're dead.
Again, no,
Cell phones.
and I don't recall how that con went. That was like a 2-day con.
I think we were just glad to get there alive, to be honest.
Yeah.
And also get there because the truck kept breaking down.
Yeah.
Joel's famous black Ford had a famous
Ford
thing
Ranger.
of dying during con runs.
Oh, yeah, there's a couple stories I remember, but that's when we had the shop, so we'll save it
Yeah.
for then. We
Yes.
went to Kansas City once.
Which also was not the best.
Yeah, I had a good time there.
Well, Joe killed me on the way back. On the way down, we
Oh.
took the highway. And Joe's brilliant idea on the way back was, let's take the scenic route. Let's take all the country roads. Me not knowing, I go, oh, sure. It literally, I'm not exaggerating, it doubled the trip back. There's
did.
nothing worse than driving through freaking country
Farmland.
fields for, instead of as it is, it's a long enough drive from Kansas City to the Twin Cities. What's that, normally like 8-9 hours on the highway?
Yeah.
It literally doubled it. We started like at 5 a.m. We didn't get home until like 10 p.m. or
Nope.
something like that. I was right. One of the few times, and I've known Joe for many, many years, and we've been partners for many years, and there's been many great battles we had. That was one of the few times I actually physically wanted to strangle him.
And I'll give Pat, you're right, because what screwed it up is we were driving up the road and I was saying, oh, here's a 50-mile detour over a 10-mile stretch of road. I'm like, oh, shit. And then I'm thinking, oh, well, hop highway. We went up 169 and I'm thinking, oh, well, hop highway 90 and just get back on the road. Yeah, we're going to, nope. Highway 90 over 169 didn't have an exit for some reason. It was closed or whatever. Yeah, that one I apologize for. That was a bad one. And the other one too is as we were driving out, John Nunziata was in front of us, and he pulled off. He turned and he went on the freeway and he pulled over, thinking we were right behind him. He thought, yeah, we stop, have breakfast, have coffee. No, we kept smart ass, keep going. Yep.
I know.
Not good.
Yeah. But I do remember one thing about Kansas City. I went to some type of video store or something like that, and this is supposed to be the new high-tech stuff come out, because back then this was when we have VHS, don't forget. And somebody had the original Thing movie on Laserdisc. So I scooped up. I didn't have a Laserdisc player yet, but I scooped up because I heard that this is supposed to be the next up-and-coming thing.
Laserdisc.
Basically a Laserdisc, and this is like a 90 or 100-minute movie. It was 2 different discs, and you have to flip them over. So basically you had to, the machine would run 30 minutes for each side, and you would have to flip it over. Obviously, technology got a lot better. I never did get a Laserdisc player, but I still had that Laserdisc to this day because one of those things that I'm not good. It's going to go to the grave with me because it has literally no value. And I paid like $40 for it, which again was a lot of money back then.
Memories.
Hell, I could have probably bought a Spider-Man 50 for $40 back then.
Maybe I'll look that up. You never know. Laserdisc might have some
But yeah, I
value.
still have it because I love the original Thing movie. Of course, I also love the remake that was done in the 80s by Carpenter. But it was just like, yeah, that's still downstairs along with some of my Star Wars records from the original movies I have. So
Now, we mentioned the X collection.
Yes.
That came about through you, didn't it?
actually, I don't remember how. Yeah,
I thought it was someone that worked with you, wasn't it?
somebody that knew somebody contacted me. Some guy, again, I don't remember the whole story, but I think it was because I was in the newspaper and they had my name in there. I was in the St. Paul Pioneers Press newspaper. They had my name in there. So somehow the guy, a friend of the guy, back then I think they looked up the phone book, to be honest. Again, long before internet, long before cell phones. So somehow we got contact about this professional. I think he was a doctor, if I remember correctly. He had,
Could be.
He had a nice
he lived
collection.
in a ritzy area.
I don't remember what area you lived in. Do you remember what area you lived in?
It was out towards where Corey lives, Chaska type area.
Okay. He had
All I
a
remember
really nice
is
house.
we were talking about using the Hudson Book of Maps. 'Cause
Yes.
remember, no cell phone, no GPS.
Yes.
And
We
he
grew up in
said,
the dark
"You're gonna
ages, kiddies."
use Hudson, huh?
Yeah.
Well, no, you're going to use these." And we eventually figured our way there.
Basically, the guy decided to get rid of his collection he had since he was a kid. I can't remember if he just thought it was time or if the wife told him or something like that. And so we get there, and he had DC, but he was heavy into Marvel. And he literally had every Amazing Spider-Man book, I believe, from 1 to 100.
One was coverless. He had
Yeah.
2 coverless number ones,
Yeah.
I remember.
Actually, it might even been a little bit higher like that. 1 to like maybe 110 or something like that. He had the original X-Men. He had original Iron Man. Strange Tales that featured the first original Doctor Strange. All types of stuff. I remember the DC stuff, he had like the first Animal Man.
Did he have, we had a copy of the first Thor that like, it looked like somebody had scraped half the cover off it. Was that his
Yes,
collection?
he had
Okay.
yes. And so the neat thing is, the first couple of years when he was a kid, he read them a lot, and so the earlier stuff was heavily read and not the best grades. But from about year 3 or 4, even though he was a young kid, he started bagging his comics. So I still remember one of my buddies who used to buy a lot of stuff off us, like he still so much of a big fan of a certain Iron Man run he bought off us and a certain Amazing Spider-Man run he bought off us. Because this guy's, Mike, is very picky in his grading. If it's not near mint, he's not buying it. And literally, so like for sake of discussion, like the Amazing Spider-Man, once you got to year 2 or 3, everything went from being VG, fine, maybe very fine, to almost everything was near mint. And so you went from having like a Amazing Spider-Man that was probably good to like issue 33 of Amazing Spider-Man that was literally near mint, even though it was 15 years old or 20 years old, where it was at the time, perfect shape. And that's how this guy's collection was. So the first couple years of stuff he had was, again, very cool, but lower grade. But once he realized he was going to keep this stuff, almost everything that was from year 3 and when he started buying comics, with a few exceptions, was literally near mint. I remember we actually had a near mint Captain America 100. I believe that was the 100, right? At the time, we ended up selling like for $15. It was near mint. Unfortunately, within a couple years, that was a couple $100 book, because the timing was comics took off shortly. I mean, the prices exploded on this stuff.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, at the time, we paid a lot of money for this collection.
Do you remember?
Oh yeah.
How
Joe
much was it?
$5,000.
Oh my Lord.
And again,
I remember my mom borrowing me $1,000 to buy it
Yes.
because I was short, and I didn't pay her off until I sold Hot Comics. Because she always counted herself as
owner of
a
Hot
little
Comics,
bit
you
of.
do that?
And I said that's
Yeah.
fine. When she did, I think I gave her back like $1,500.
Yeah.
Which she would have taken 1,000.
Yeah. No, yeah. So we paid $5,000, which again, this is sometime in the 80s. Again, this is a lot of money. I mean, like,
Yeah.
Joe had to borrow his. I basically drained all my savings, everything. I don't think I had borrowed any money, but I literally tapped myself out. At the time, I didn't have a girlfriend or wife. I wasn't living my own. So literally, I was trying to save money up, and I literally tapped our savings. I mean, I think we had negotiated down to $5,000 because we finally told the guy, this is the most we have. And he
And
agreed to it.
I do remember
And
him saying he had guys offer him more, but he liked the fact that
we were passionate
young,
about
we were
it.
starting out, and we geeked more on his
Yeah.
books than because everybody else he said came in and just acted disinterested, like
Yeah.
oh, whatever. We're like, oh wow, look at this, look at this.
Well, and the other thing too, we were honest with them. We were telling them we're doing shows. Chances are we're going to try to sell a lot of this, but some of this we're going to keep our own collections. But because again, I can't remember how we came with it, but Joe and I agreed we could keep a certain. Because obviously we had to put some type of dollar value on it too. Because we couldn't say we're going to keep 100 books. Because what if Joe wanted to keep all the Amazing Spider-Man, even back then, that type of stuff, or Daredevil. We had Daredevil 1.
Yes, we did.
Journey
A good run of that.
So we come up. Joe and I came with some type of formula. I don't remember what, but it had a certain dollar value. We agreed that each of us could keep a certain dollar value of these. So I think I probably picked some X-Men and some Spider-Man stuff. I think I did keep, because I was more into Spider-Man back then.
Yeah.
And Joe, I think you actually kept, like, was it Daredevil or Strange Tales or?
I don't know what I kept, but I know I have one book of it. It's a Strange Tales that has the Thing meets the Beatles.
Okay.
And it you're right, it's a cherry mint book.
Yes.
And it's not one I probably will ever sell
Yeah.
because it has more memory attached
Right.
to it than a dollar value.
Right.
And then I question like what I had taken because
Yeah.
whatever it was, and I've talked about this story before. I had a whole run of Batman.
Yeah.
And I remember selling them for $0.25 a piece. And the next year, Dark Knight came out. All the Batmans went up in value to
Yeah.
$5 books. And I'm like, I got rid of my whole collection for $5.
Yeah, way too soon.
$5.
Yeah, but we had this awesome X, and we call it the X collection because
It
we
was
also try to keep us.
PJX because we wanted to know when an X book sold.
Yes, and we wanted to be able to track the revenue we received from it, obviously, because that was a big investment for Joe and I. Again, $5,000 back sometime in the mid '80s. Again, mid '80s.
And remember, we're
86,
probably
87.
I think by then
We're just doing shows. We don't have a shop.
No,
We're just doing shows.
I
We
was
didn't-
think I was working still at Sears.
Yeah.
I might have been moving commission at that time. I don't know.
And I probably had my first full-time job at First Banks, but again, my base salary at First Banks for my first full-time job was $15,000, which it's not. You're not setting the world on fire. That's for sure. I mean, I could pay my bills, But yeah, so that was a big thing. So that's why we couldn't just sit on everything, even though we seen that the prices start moving.
To go back
so there was
in
actually a
time.
few things we actually just put aside for a while because again we couldn't get everything bagged and priced near because it was a huge collection.
Oh,
it was
yeah.
boxes and boxes of comics. It was a huge collection. So I mean, literally this guy, not every book, but he had almost every Marvel and DC. He had a lot of DC too. Now that I think about it, that was published back in the
the
60s.
DC was more scattershot.
It was
wasn't
more
real runs.
Yeah. But he had some key ones, like I said, the first Animal Man, and like there's certain ones too. We got lucky. I think he had, like Joe said, 2 Amazing Spider-Man #1. Both were in rough shape. 2 first appearances of Doctor Strange. 2 first appearances of Animal Man. And there's a few things like that where there's like a little hodgepodge. Sometimes he had 2 or 3, but not.
He
not
did
any-
show us the one
Yeah.
book he was keeping because he had actually had a letter published in it.
Mm.
I don't know which book. If I did, I could look it up and probably
Yeah.
know the guy's name. I do remember after the deal was done, the money exchange, we had the books. Just he looked sad.
He did look sad. I remember
I
that.
mean, it's obviously.
Wife looked happy.
Oh yeah, she was happy.
Got rid
but
of
he
that
was
junk.
just kind of like,
Yeah.
and I understand because
Yeah.
it was he sold his
He sold his childhood.
childhood.
He sold
and
his
we were
childhood.
happy to take it.
Yes.
I wish I knew the guy's name because
It's been so long, I can't
it's
remember.
way too
but-
long.
But yeah, so people will come, especially when we first started getting them out, the first couple of shows, we had dealers coming to us, and all of a sudden, hey, you guys went from having a Teen Titans 1, which no big deal because they sold them off the rack and probably kept a few in their back room, to having stuff that, again, it was a beat up copy. We had Amazing Spider-Man 1, we had the first, there was not FF1, but I think he started with FF4. The first, was that 4 or 5 was the first Doctor Doom.
Yeah.
We had a rough copy of that. And like I said, once you got 2 or 3 years into the various runs, everything was near mint. And, first Watcher, even though Watcher was not a big book then, it was still above price. So we had all this type of stuff. So dealers would be coming to us. And we would negotiate a little bit, but we weren't giving the stuff away because we said we got to make some money. But on the flip side, we did sell some stuff because, again, we needed to get cash
Yeah,
in.
it was kind of an interesting conundrum.
Yeah.
You need to get the cash back, but
Yeah.
not too bad.
But yeah, then I remember also Iron Man 1. I remember this. I was at a show a few years later. Do you remember that? Where the guy wrote a bad check?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, okay.
I do.
So this is part of the X collection. And this guy came over, hang with me. I didn't want to sell because I thought, okay, Iron Man 1's moving up in price. Long before the movies, obviously. But I told Joe, I go, and the guy was sort of a douche. I go, Joe, if you want to negotiate, you can. So eventually Joe negotiated with them. I wasn't happy with the price Joe got. I think we were asking like $2 or $2.50. I think Joe sold for $1.50. The guy wrote a check from either South or North Dakota he lived in. Okay, the guy haggled with Joe for over an hour on one freaking book. We bring it to the bank. I forget where we had our deposit with at the time. I think it was that. Yeah, I remember it was First Banks,
wasn't it? Yeah.
where I worked. Guess what? The check bounces. It was literally, we only had 2 bad checks in all years we did shows, both at PJ Comics and Hot Comics. We only had 2 bad checks. Even the chick that went to jail for embezzling and writing bad checks, I got cash from. So
You got cash, remember.
But this guy rolled bad checks. I'm thinking, can I say the D word?
Yeah, why not?
This dick pissed me off. Hang with my partner for over an hour to get a book, and he knew his check wasn't going to be good. Now the good thing is he has an account with First Banks. Back then I was also a collector. Back then there was a trick you could do. As long as his account was not closed, we would have to pay a fee. But as soon as he made a deposit, no matter what other priorities he had, that check would become first priority. And so since the account was not closed, we paid this fee. And as soon as he made a deposit, which actually he called me and he said, well, that was my rent check. Well, I go, dude, you shouldn't roll a bad check. I mean, I got
I didn't
this
know
guy.
that.
Oh yeah, I hammered this guy.
Oh, beautiful.
I hammered this. So anyway, he made a deposit. It was going, and then he wrote his rent check, which bounced. Our money minus the bank fee of $15. So we got most of our money out of this guy. And then he had to contact me or call me somehow, say, you made me bounce my rent check. I go, well, you shouldn't roll a bad check to begin for a comic book. He threatened to sue me. Couldn't do anything because again he was in wrong. Writing checks is illegal.
Yeah.
It's not a
Well,
felony,
small
but
claim
it's
court, too.
yeah. So we got our money out. But anyways, I remember that. But I remember this guy just because he was such a douchebag to deal with to begin with. And most times I'm a pretty easygoing guy. Most times,
Sure,
but once in a
sure.
while you get somebody like that. And like I said, Joe, you deal with this guy. He never intended to honor that check. Well, he did.
No, because he waited till
He
both
did.
times. I think you said both times it had to bounce twice, and then the bank would consider it uncashable. but
So we had to wait
he
the
didn't know
second
we
time.
had a
Yeah.
sneaky.
Yes, we had a little
sneaky way.
sneak attack. So, anyways, I remember that, but that was part of the X collection. It was Iron Man 1. So, the memories you have.
I know, isn't it great?
Yes.
You discovered Hot Comics.
Yes.
How did that happen?
I don't remember. I just remember, I think it was like back into the little, behind a sewing shop in not Maplewood.
Oh, it was still St. Paul, yeah.
No, but I mean, the strip mall. What was the name of the strip mall?
Hafner Center.
Yeah, Hafner Center. It was next to Hafner's Bowling Alley, which was torn down many, many years ago. But anyways, I was walking by, seeing a little sign that says like Hot Comics. So at first I look in there, I see NC Prints, I see a sewing shop a little further back. I went further back, and there's this little hole in the wall, tucked in like the third business back in this little hallway.
100 square feet.
And he had a lot of toys, which turned me off because I'm not a toy guy, as Joe
And of
will
course,
attest
for
to.
you toy guys, you're talking classic Transformers.
Yes, which
I mean, you're talking mega, again, toys that we should have bought and never sold
Yes.
until now, but
yes, but again, it was not for me. He had some comics. So I started chit chatting with the guy, and over time, we just became cordial friends. And then I told Joe about it. Joel came there, and then
because you told me, it's like, I discovered this shop. Like,
Yeah.
oh, right up on White Bear Avenue. And
Yeah.
I'm like, really? I drive by it constantly and we never saw it. Because it would be like Pat and I would meet at St. Paul Comic, and then we, depending on what we had to do, we'd hit a Schindler's and we'd go out to eat.
yeah.
And that was kind of our Friday.
One of the things then with St. Paul Comic, we had an agreement where I think we got 30% off because we bought so much stuff.
Yeah.
It was 30 or
And
35%
we'd order
off.
through previews.
Yeah.
And it was always, I'd order, you order, we combine our orders, and we decide, is there anything we're going to buy?
For the future business, the
Yeah.
PJ
And
Comics.
I remember, there were things that I wasn't impressed with. Like you ordered 4 or 5 copies of the Dark Knight hardcover, and when it came, we sold them.
Yeah.
Actually, that has a bad memory because that was one of the first things we ever got ripped off at a con for. Because it was like, Pat, did you sell one? No. Fargate. Somebody stole one.
Shoplifters, which we had a few over
But,
the years.
at the end, we ended up making a lot of money. I also remember buying, at the time, I was buying at Dreamhaven because their store was in Dinkytown.
While
I'd
you were
be,
at the school,
I'd be
I
at the
think.
U, and
Yeah.
it would be like I'd get a coupon out of the paper from the Daily, and it was for like Pizza Hut deal, $5, personal pizza, 1 trip salad bar, drink. I'd go to Dreamhaven, first I'd go to Dreamhaven, buy some comics,
Yeah.
and 5 o'clock at night, I'm doing this, and then I'd catch up with my buddy Dave Marsh, he'd give me a ride home. So I was doing both. I had John holding the books, and then I'd buy stuff, come in, I'd see Al Payne,
Yeah.
he's working at Dynamite Entertainment now, and be like, Al, what'd you buy? Or what's cool? Well, I'll try this. And sometimes I'd buy things that I'd know I had waiting at John's just because I wanted to read it, or Al had recommended it and I checked it out. And so I was a 2-timer at that time. 3-timer counting Schindler's, but but yeah, I remember going to Hot Comics and just seeing the stuff, and
Yeah.
the toys and the comics, and they eventually moved from that little closet into a store that was about 800 square feet. Now, around this time, and I can't remember the year, maybe you can, John decided to stop carrying new comics.
Right.
And we negotiated with him too. We were like, oh, please, we'll do this, we'll do that. But he was tired of it. I think he gave us some advice later on. He said, you can either do old stuff good or new stuff good. You can't really do both.
Yeah.
And he decided he was just going to do old stuff. And so he quit. I also remember how this happened, I don't know, but John was leaving, and I think there was a mad dash for his customers because I remember Dreamhaven coming to us and asking us, Al was saying, why don't you buy your books from us? Oh, okay, what kind of deal? Well, I'll give you 10%.
Yeah. No.
There was a couple other stores that asked. I think Ralph was running Comic College. He offered 20. Well, Dan and Brian, 30. We went to Hot Comics.
Yeah.
I asked Dan years later what he thought of when we showed up, and they were happy because we were big guys and we're big orders coming in, So and at that time I think it was anything over 150 books, you got a 30% discount. And we pretty much, a couple times we were close, but we stayed pretty well over that. Now, do you remember when we started talking about buying Hot Comics?
Probably in late 91. It took a while to negotiate. I remember that. Probably
'Cause
late
I know-
91.
I know Dan, I think it was Brian was talking about selling the shop
Yeah.
for whatever reason. I think he just, for a guy who'd never liked the east side of St. Paul, it was weird he opened a shop there.
Yeah.
And you and I lived on the east side, so
Right.
when he was complaining about it, we're like, hey, this is our home.
Right. I think it was late '91, and then it took a long time for it to come to the price. And then once it came to the price, it was a little bit high, so we were a little shocked by that.
91 or 92?
But we bought it in '92.
Okay.
But it was a process.
Okay, because I
remember
don't
it was a
remember. I thought my recollection is like, I guess I don't recall when we decided to
Yeah.
buy it. It became
Because it took a while
real
for us to.
when I realized, okay, I'm going to have to quit Sears in
Right.
September to be able to get my profit sharing check
Yep.
that I used to buy Hot Comics.
So there was a long, because you had to talk to your wife too about potentially quitting your job and run the shop full time. Because I was going to keep my job and work the weekends and have one weekend off a month, and Joe be working the shop during the day at night, and I would do some nights. But yeah, so we had, we were talking about that. You had to talk to your wife. We had to figure out the financing because once they started coming with some prices, a little bit higher than what we thought. Part was I know Joe had to borrow some money. I had to borrow money because
I maxed
the price.
I maxed the credit card
Yeah,
to do it.
the price went up than what we thought, but by that point, once we got a hard number, Joe and I already was like, if it would have been early in the process where they tossed out the number, we probably would have walked away.
Yeah.
But it was later in the process and was like, now it's like, well, it's our dream. It's our dream. It's our dream.
we're
And so
close to
basically,
it.
yeah, so they wanted like, I believe it was like $27,000 for it, which was a lot. Because again, all you're buying is some inventory and the customer base. And even back then, collectible comics themselves don't have. You might have one or two good books, and you got the rest that you're going to sell for a quarter each if you blow them out, type of thing. If you got liquidation, because I remember, so Joe and I came up with the agreement that we each had to come up with 15 grand because we also wanted to have a little operating cash. We didn't want our first check to bounce.
Yeah.
That type of stuff. So we ended up paying them. I think it was 26 or 27,000, and then so Joe and I each had to come up with 15 grand. And I know it was a struggle for Joe. It was a struggle for me. I actually had to borrow $5,000 from my dad. I had to make a plea with him. I go, Dad, I've tapped everything out. I cashed in my bonds. I cashed in my savings. I came up about 10 grand myself, and that cleared me out. Because back then I was buying savings bonds with my paycheck, everything. I cashed all those in. I had to. I had nothing left. I go, Dad, I need to borrow money. I don't want to borrow money from you because you've had bad experiences with my older brother, never paying you back. But I need to. I promise the first check I pay, every paycheck, at the beginning of the month, is going to you. And that was it. I had to pay my dad $150 and that was between my dad and me. My mom kept all of it. So the first bill I ever paid with my beginning of the month paycheck, because back then I got paid twice a month, was to my dad for $150. And then when he agreed to it, he didn't want no interest. I go, Dad, that's not fair. So I got a cheaper interest rate because, again, my background, I could figure out interest. So I got like a rate of 5%, which was great for him because that was back in the 80s when the interest rates were low again. So you had, you're getting 1 or 2% in your money market, even if they had them back in your savings. So I made sure you got 5%. It was a better deal for me because I actually went to my employer to ask for SBA loan, even though I worked for the bank for 7 years at that point in time. I got turned down, and that pissed me off. Again, I understand I don't make a lot of money there, but I've been here for 7 freaking years.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm keeping my job, so it was not easy to get a loan. That's like, I think Joe had
No, I
borrowed
don't
some
think
money.
I ever. Yeah,
He maxed out his
I
credit
maxed
cards.
out a credit card. I had 10 grand from my profit sharing, which again, as I figured, it took 2 months to get.
Yep.
And so I had to quit in September, even though we had planned to take over November
Yep.
1st.
Yes.
In between, I ran pizza for Pizza Hut, so
Yes.
I wasn't just sitting there. And again, this is, I talk a lot on my podcast about eBaying. We're no eBaying. This is 92,
Right.
so, and there was no internet sales.
Dark ages.
I mean, the one time Pat and I tried to ad in the Comic Buyer's Guide to sell stuff.
Or buy stuff. Remember, the guy went to prison.
Yeah, some guy, we tried to buy stuff and he took, check disappeared. He got racket. We were supposed to get restitution. Never happened.
Mail fraud, though. The guy went to prison for a
He
couple
did.
years because they tracked him down. 'Cause he
The
used a fuel box.
the first ad we ever ran, I remember one guy called and he was saying, "Well, I want these books for $400." Well, one of them was my Uncanny X-Men, and okay, well let me check with him and I'll call you back. And then he never contacted
Yeah.
us again. So yeah, we weren't impressed with the CBG ads.
Right.
So nowadays there's all sorts of different networks you can use, but yeah, if we did it, we had our con stock, we would sink into it. I think we agreed to bring, was it $1,000 of our own collection in?
Something like that, yeah.
We had a run of Valiant books, which were hot, which I remember that went really crazy when we first set them out. Hell, I think I had to, you talked at the con, something I forgot about. I mean, I said, I got this computer.
Yeah, I got the whole snow job from Joe.
Yeah, it was a good one.
He had 14 grand. He didn't have the whole 15 grand. So I got this fancy computer, which was just like his freaking Ford truck. It broke as much as it ran.
No, that one ran. No, it was the 386. We're talking a 286, which at the time was probably mid-grade maybe. But the funny thing about it is I ran, when I had Crazy Comics years later, I still ran the subscription service through it. I had the nice internet, the nice Windows, whatever it was, XT computer, and I was just running the old dinosaur just to run that. So, and the thing this was, we're jumping forward a bit, but I think that was one of the first major purchases we bought. Brian recommended one of his friends down in Florida was using this software program to run his comic collection in the subscription service, and it was like $800 or something, an old DOS program. It was probably the best thing we ever bought, because not only did I use it, I used it with Crazy Comics, and I think I eventually just gave the disc to Nick, because he just loved playing with old DOS programs.
Yeah.
Whether he used it or not, I don't think so, but so we finally got it going.
Yep, we bought Hot Comics in November 1992.
I still have the purchase agreement. I remember we talked about different things, and I think we might have surprised Brian, because we had things in it like, okay, you're not going to open another comic store within like a 20-mile radius.
Yes.
Which was their intention. They were going over to
Dinah? Egan?
Yeah, they went to Edina in their first one. You and I figured out a partnership agreement that actually had, well, what if we decide to
Break up.
close or break?
Yes.
And, because we both knew, we're going to drop 30 grand in this thing, but we're not going to have 30 grand sitting around. If I dropped out or Pat decided to leave, I wouldn't have 15 grand to pay you back.
Right.
So we had it out.
Immediately,
We're going to do payments. We're going to do fees. We already talked about, I would run the store Monday through Friday. Pat would come in Saturday, Sunday, except for 1 week in a month. I believe we kept Dave. They had what they called scrubs. And Butch can talk a little bit more about scrubs. They were basically just underage kids that just hung at the comic store, mostly because the parents trusted the guys running it. I think Dave lived right across the street. Jess went with Dan and Brian over to Edina. So we had an employee of sorts with us.
Which we eventually did hire for real and pay him.
Yep. And
Made it legit.
made it a tax write-off.
Yes.
We had an accountant. I think originally we went with Brian and Dan's accountant. And then later we found, was his name Tim?
Yeah, because he used to work at First Bank, so I casually knew him.
And I actually used him all the way through Crazy Comics.
Okay.
Because, I didn't use him necessarily accountant.
Yeah.
Because with Crazy Comics, it was easy. I could just use Quicken Books.
Quicken
Books.
Sorry.
But he did our taxes all the time. So that was
do you remember the food bar we have, Brian, shortly after we signed so we're owners of Hot Comics now. Again, like Joe said, we did a legal agreement, purchase agreement. Thing is, like I said, I worked at First Banks. I actually had our documentation manager authorize and do the legal documents, because that's what she did. I don't know if you remember that part or
No,
not.
I don't.
And she put some stuff in there, like when I first was there, my first weekend, Brian was trying to say, well, those are my receipts because I paid for those books. I go, yeah, but we purchased this as of, I believe it was November 1st.
Which was a Sunday.
Yes. So he was trying to take the receipts for the first week. I go, no, those are not receipts. That's our receipts. Because I know what it was. I was ringing myself up. And he said, well, you shouldn't get that big of a discount, because Joe and I agreed on giving ourselves, like, I think it was 50.
At least cost. Yeah.
Yeah, for 50, for the comics, and if there was something special like a statue, we would pay 5% above cost. So if the discount for the comic book shop was 35, I got 30%, so to speak. But anyways, he was trying to say, no, you need to only get your 30% discount. I go, no, I'm the owner of the shop now. He goes, no. And I actually, luckily I had a copy of the agreement at the shop. I had to pull it out and show it to him, and he was a little shocked by that. And he was trying to bamboozle us out of a couple of weeks' receipts, which was not going to happen. And I go, no, as of this day, it's our shop. The revenues are ours. The bills are ours, which we signed stuff saying we're taking over the power bill, this bill, the rent.
Until
the landlord knew we took over the lease.
Yeah,
We actually signed a separate
which was
lease
pretty
agreement.
easy.
Yeah, but I mean, again, everybody was aware that there was new owners in place, so Brian was not responsible for the lease anymore. Pat and Joe were, that type of stuff. Our partnership was. But Brian was trying to take the receipts from us, and I said, no, that ain't going to happen. And I showed him the lease, the agreement, the purchase agreement, and he backed off. And then he was also trying to take books out of the shop, and we said no. Now we did, so there was not bad blood. We did let them take some books.
Well, yeah, remember the.
But we didn't let them take as much as he wanted.
This was the week that Superman died.
Yeah, shortly after we took over, like within 2 weeks, Superman died.
And what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut this off at part 1 and start up with part 2 with our first week of
Hot comics.
Hot to Comics with Pat and Joe.
Yeah.
So again, Crazy Joe Ryder, thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week with part 2.
Woo!
Wow, man, freaked out.